Hey guys, what's up? It's Dave here again with another video, and I am super excited for this one. This is the new SCX10 Pro, that kit that just came out from Axial. I'm going to be building this thing. I'm going to show you what I'm going to be putting on it, and as I build it, I'm also going to go over some of the differences and some of the cool features that this thing has versus like a stock base cam, and even a built class 2 for the sword art competitions. So I guess let's jump into it. I'll start showing you some of the features, some of the things that I'm going to be putting on this thing. So for the tires, we went with the Pro Line crawlers. I believe that these were the Predator compound. Um, I don't know. I've had them. And wanted to put them on a truck. So I then have Crawler Innovation dual stage foams using the heavyweight comp cut inner with medium outer. These medium outers are going to be on the front, and then I got firm for the rear. For electronics, we're going to be going with the Mamba Micro X2. This is probably one of my favorite ESCs. It'll run brushless, censored, sensorless. In the crawler, it is perfect. Then, for the servo, we're going to go with the Shifts RC S2.0. It's a great servo. Pretty much going in on almost all my trucks now. And then for the servo winch, we're going to use the Shifts RC XLP. It's a nice little low profile servo winch that'll go right up front. For the body, we've chosen this body that I probably could have taken out of the package, but whatever. It is the Sumo L, so this is going to be the long wheelbase Sumo. It is a 12.3 wheelbase where the kit says it's 12.5, but I think that this body is going to be perfect for cutting all the angles that need to be cut. And then for the motor, it's going to be a Team Brewed Slither. It's actually getting pulled out of one of my other trucks, so I haven't did that yet. So I guess we'll just jump into it. Well, that's a little disappointing. So Axial used to come out with all these kits, all the ready to runs. They used to come with little green or orange gate markers, and it's been a while since they did it, so I'm not really too surprised. But this vehicle's for competition. It is the biggest oversight, I think, that these did not come with these little green markers. These guys right here. Obviously, I just took it out of the box, but I have hundreds of these. I don't really need more, but it would have been cool to see them in here. Moving on. All right, so hit one little, I don't want to call it snafu, but one little thing to pay particular attention to when building this. I know I saw they mentioned it in another live video or in another video, but I really want to emphasize this because this is something that can be a problem later on. You got these 3 axle tubes here, right there, boom. They all look the same length, and it is noted in the manual that one is shorter than the other. And if you're just if they're sitting on the bench and you just kind of look at them, they all look the same. It literally calls for 72.27 millimeters is the one for the front. That's going to be the shorter one. Obviously, you'll find that out. But the one for the rear axle is 73.25 millimeters. So keep an eye on that, because your axle won't go together right if you're using the long one. Carrying on. Alright, so one of the cool features, since I'm building the axle, about this kit is you can do 2 different setups. So this is going to be the front axle. As you can see, it's going to be an offset pumpkin, which is definitely going to be helpful later, and I'll show you why later. But this here mount, this is going to be your upper link mount. You got your lower link mount, and your pan hard. That's going to be the bar that goes from there to there. And there's two different configurations. So you can run it like this or like this. So basically what this does is it allows you to have the servo mounted on the axle. The other way is obviously chassis mounted servo, which is pretty traditional. But this, the benefit to this is basically it's going to keep the weight nice and low, and with the offset pumpkin, you're going to clear drive shafts, and I mean everything. You can make everything just sit lower. It is super nice. They've been doing that in the aftermarket world for years. They were doing it on the original AX10 and all the other, pretty much every comp crawler out there. So, and even scale stuff. Like Deluxe has it for the Capra axles. So it is really cool to see this as a stock-ish manufactured part. So that's cool. And this plate is supposed to be coming in carbon fiber, or you can get it in carbon fiber. So that's super cool. This setup right here will be a really fun build for a really fun moon buggy build. So I'm really excited about these axles. Internally, the ring and pinion's basically the same as AR-44. So only thing that I'm really questioning right now is that these C-hubs wearing black, and these black parts don't really go well. But it's just super smooth. Basically, C-hub just slides on there. It's not really clockable, so you can't adjust the caster, which is basically going to put your wheel back just a little bit, clock it back, which really helps on like descents when you're coming down. If the wheels clock back a little bit, it's not going to be digging into the ground as much if you're trying to turn. So I'm curious to see how the links allow it to be set up once it's all done. Carrying on. All right, so now that we have the axles done, I gotta say these are pretty nice. The axle tubes are, I believe, steel. So they got some weight to them. I do believe that they're going to be coming out with brass tubes. But honestly, I don't think you really need that. These are very reminiscent to some aftermarket stuff like SSD axles. So these are pretty nice, honestly. The front, the caster that I was worried about, I think is going to be good. I think it's still going to be fine. I think we're going to have plenty there. I did go with the chassis mounted servo setup because we will be running this in comps, and I'll be running it. We'll be taking it to ECC, big national comp. So we need scale points. So that's important. But yeah, now that the axles are done, I'm getting more excited. So now on to build some shocks. All right, so I got a couple shocks built, and I gotta say these are pretty nice. The shock body is nice and small, which is great. And not only that, but these little shocks, these little springs, are very reminiscent of what we run in the comp world. Basically, a lot of people are running like DravTechs or the Traxxas 2660s with the mini T springs, and companies, aftermarket companies, were making these spring retainers that would actually hold those little springs. And they were super nice. You can get them in brass, or nowadays you can 3D print them, or buy this from Axial. So the cool thing about these springs is they're the same diameter. They're the same size as the Losi, old Losi, new Losi, Mini T, but basically the colorful Mini T springs, which are pretty popular in the comp world. You can get them, they come in normally 3 different colors for 3 different spring rates. The orange, red, and pink are the real common ones. The pink are probably the most popular, at least everybody that I talk to runs them, and they'll fit right on here. So that is a great little tip. Again, little orange, little colorful ones. Where the Axial, I'm sure that they're going to have different spring rates, but yeah, you can play around with it. I am just running the 35 weight. That's what it came with. I might change that out later, but for the sake of keeping everything as stock as possible, that's what we're going with. So, moving on. Alright, and now we're working on the transmission. I don't know why I said it like that. But so far the transmission's actually going together pretty easy, pretty simple. I have been following the rules, or following the directions, and I haven't ran into any snafus like in some previous kits. So far, I'm pretty impressed. I really like the way that this transmission mounts to the skid plate. It makes everything nice and flush. With the skid plate off, you can see in there, but it's not really a big deal, honestly. Once you get this all together, then you're not going to be able to see or get in there. Yeah, some dirt, dust, debris might maybe get in there, but I highly doubt it. You're going to be running 2 screws in the front, 2 small screws in the back, and then screws in the bottom as well. So this thing should be good and secure. It does have a selectable overdrive. I think it says it'll do 40% overdrive. Honestly, this is just going to be a comp truck, so I'm probably just going to lock it out in overdrive. But if you do plan on buying this to trail ride with it, you can do that. Basically, you're going to run a small servo or just a servo in the back to control this slider, to control the overdrive. And realistically, if you're buying this to run in the trails, I mean, you're going to want it to be selectable, because having that much overdrive while running out on the trails is just a disaster on your drive line. So you really only want to use it then sparingly when necessary. But considering this is going to be just for comps, locking it out is going to be the easiest way, and I'll get that figured out once I get the whole transmission together. There's not really an option to lock it out, so I'll probably have to figure something out there. But yeah, having a selectable overdrive, I don't think it's legal either. So at least not for Class 2. Would be for Class 3, I'm sure. But anyway, let's carry on. Carry on, my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Oh, shit, dog. That's not the right one. Alright. Well, I guess I got to retract my last statement. It is very easy to lock this out, which is awesome. So, this transmission, this piece right back here, you can kind of see it. This piece, basically, this is where your servo would go, is right in here, right? Yep. Now, let's try to hold that. So, right in there, this piece would come out, you'd put your servo in there, and that would attach to this little arm, which, it would attach to this little arm right here, and that is what slides in and out and allows you to have selectable overdrive. But what this piece does is it'll lock it out. So you can put it in there, or you can pop it out, have no overdrive, and lock it in the lower section. So I guess I should have built it a little bit further before saying anything about locking out the overdrive. Whatever. This is a super simple way. And I am thoroughly impressed with this kit so far. As you can see, I've still not done the transmission. But moving on, almost done with it. So let's carry on. All right, so in the process of finishing the trans, this little lockout here that goes on the back. Basically, there's two flat sides on this shaft, and the lockout just slides over it. No big deal. But I don't know if it was necessarily a defect or a mold defect or something else. I don't really know. But this lockout did not just slide on. I actually had to put the lockout on, kind of key it roughly where it needed to be. And then without this little slipper pad, it's not a slipper pad because there's no slipper, but without this big metal ring, I was able to get about a thread or two with the nut on there and then able to crank it down. So again, I don't know if that was some kind of defect in the little locker, but it might be a little bit tough, but just kind of set it on there best you can, get it pressed on, and then once you thread that nut on, it should push it all on, no problem. So yeah, just wanted to point that out. I don't think it was necessarily a problem. I think it was just a super tight tolerance. So almost got the trans together. And then we move on to, I think, just the chassis. And this thing's almost done, dude. Alright, so we've moved on to the links now. And links are normally time consuming. But a couple things I just wanted to mention, because these links are super nice. I mean, that's obviously your steering link. It does come with the other drag link, or steering link. But basically there's two different links that go from the servo to the steering knuckle, depending on if you're using CMS, chassis mounted servo, or axle mounted servo. So it is nice that it gives you both those options, obviously, because it gives you the axle mounted option, but it gives you a couple options, which is really cool. But just the overall thickness of these links are pretty nice. So they're not super thick like what come on the Capra. Let's see if we can just kind of compare, show you the difference. Yeah, you can kind of see. So these are much thinner, but not too thin. They don't feel thin, which is nice. But another little detail here, we'll kind of try to, hopefully that maybe focus. Maybe focus. Are you gonna focus? So this is the rod end that they come with. These guys right here. And they have a nice little taper to them. So that means that you're not going to snag on the rock. It basically goes nice and flush to, maybe you'll focus. There we go. So it will actually taper and kind of flow into the link, which is nice. Whereas old style stuff, like these Revo rod ends, they wouldn't taper, and it would leave this little bit of an edge, which can cause it to snag and pull, and just isn't good. So it's really nice that they put that little bit of detail in there. I mean, because after all, this is a competition truck. So it is nice to see that they've thought about just everything on here. So yeah, again, I'm still impressed. Everything, the directions, I mean, everything has just been really good. So there's definitely I'm seeing where the price is. So we'll continue on. So we got our start, or almost end. Basically, we got our lower links mounted to our skid, and just figured I'd kind of show you that this skid is obviously flat, but you actually run a set screw, grub screw, pin screw, whatever you want to call it, through here, and that's what holds the links on. These are basically how most aftermarket skid plates run. Most of them work. The Vader skid stuff that we carry is just like this. It also has rear clearance links for the back. So, I mean, this was clearly a well thought out kit. Obviously, I mean, it was built by somebody that actually competes. So, yeah, this has been a really thought out build, really thought out kit, and I've been thoroughly impressed. And I mean, I'm still not done with it, but I just keep finding little nuanced things. Like I said, the little taper on these rod ends, and um, that just make it worth every dollar. Um, we'll see once it gets done. We'll see how it compares to my other class 2. So onto the chassis. All right. On a side note, for those of you watching, I'm sure you wouldn't have been able to figure that out because there's no natural light or anything. But I built this. It has taken 6 hours. That was after working a day at work. Started at 8, and I just checked the clock. It is now 2 in the morning. So the build's done, just about. We got a chassis. I just need to mount tires, and then basically finish up the electronics and body. So I mean, it's not completely done, but overall everything went together pretty easy, pretty good. Had a couple little weird things in the directions, maybe just with how late it is. I don't really know, but the directions told me to put this front upper link further back. I just had to move it forward to make it work. So I don't know if I just read something wrong or what. But honestly, the shocks feel pretty good. The overall truck feels pretty good. I don't have the motor and ESC and stuff in it yet, but it will. The one thing that's a little disappointing is the front. Let's get you up in there. You can maybe see, but the front servo horn actually hits the panhard mount before these knuckles even hit their bump stops. So still getting a decent amount of steering, but to the left it seems to hit that. So that might take a little bit of work. I'll probably do some grinding and trimming to really get full steering out of it. I mean, as is, I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. But yeah, let's finish it up and get it out on the rocks now.